So the Canon M50 is Canon's third newest camera overall before the R and the RP, and it's been out for a little under a year right now. I believe it came out in May of 2018. Since its release, you've probably heard of tons of people using this camera on YouTube. You've probably seen tons of videos on YouTube, people talking about pros, the cons, its small profile, its crop 4K, yada yada yada. It is a very, very good camera in my opinion. It does have some downsides, like the 4K crop, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But for most people and for most online content creators, it will get the job done. Of course, links to everything that I talk about in this video are going to be down below that you'll need to pick up if you're planning on getting the M50, things to go with it to complete your kit, lighting, microphone, tripod, all of that good stuff will be down below. Now, before we get into the pros and cons of this camera, it's important to realize who Canon made this camera for, who it's marketed towards, and who will be best served by picking it up. First of all, it is not a professional videographer camera. It is not a professional photographer's camera. It can be used by professional photographers and professional videographers. I mean, it produces stellar images, stellar videos, but it's just not got some of those pro level features that you would expect out of a pro level DSLR or pro level mirrorless, like an RP, A7 III, like an A7 R3, etc. It's not got IBIS, it's not got, you know, stellar 4K. It's usable, it's there, even though there's a crop. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's not made with those features in mind. It's an entry level mirrorless, so just keep that in mind when you're picking this up. And the price really reflects that now. You can get this with the creator kit from Best Buy for about $6.99, which is an absolutely incredible deal. And once again, links to everything is gonna be down below, so you can check that out whenever you're ready. Now, one of the biggest draws to the mirrorless market and one of the biggest overall appeals of a mirrorless camera is its low profile. So whereas DSLRs in the past, like a 1D, a 5D, even the 6D are kind of big cameras that are kind of bulky and can be difficult to fit everywhere, a camera like the M50 can actually fit in your pocket. It's extremely low profile if you have a smaller lens on it, like the 22mm or even the kit lens. So that's one huge advantage of it. It's never gonna be a size constraint. It's never gonna be an issue of weight with the M50. It's really just gonna be a matter of, does it do what you need it to do? And that's actually really, really cool, because some cameras before, you didn't want to take them out in public to make vlogs because obviously it looks really weird if you've got a massive 1DX Mark II and you're just walking around with a GorillaPod. It looks very intimidating. It's a huge box. But with a camera like the M50, I mean, it's really like the same size as an iPhone, you know, if you think about it from top to bottom lengthwise. So definitely not going to be getting weird stares there. Another huge draw to the M50 is its fully articulate screen, which is huge for YouTube content creators, because obviously if you're walking around, you've got your GorillaPod, you're making a vlog, you can check your exposure, check your shutter speed, all your settings that you've got going on for your video. You don't have to worry about stopping and starting the video again to check your settings, because you can always see it at all times using the articulate screen. In addition to being fully articulate, it's also a very good touchscreen, much better than any other competitor on the market. Sony have touchscreens on their A7 line, and I believe even on their regular like A6000, the A6300, the A6400 as well, but none of them come close to being as good as Canon in terms of the touch responsiveness, in terms of just the simple intuitiveness of the screen. And that's a huge draw for people looking to get into YouTube, because at the end of the day, you really just want to be able to turn the camera on and make a video. Another huge draw to the M50 is that you do have Canon's entire line of lenses available to you, both via adapter and natively. Now, natively, of course, this camera uses the M mount, which is pretty standard on Canon's M series cameras. Via adapter, you also have access to their EF lenses, which is what I personally prefer to use. That's for their full frame cameras, of course, but some people don't really like it because obviously the M50 being so small, if you put a full frame lens on there, like a 70-200 or 28-70, it does kind of look weird and can feel a bit weird in hand as well, because the camera is just so small compared to the lens. But nevertheless, it is still available if you should choose to do so. So in addition to its touchscreen, its size, and its lens selection, the M50 is also very easy to set up and use right out of the box, which is something that's pretty common among Canon cameras, and is why a lot of people like to use Canon, because it's just so simple to set up. The menu options are really nicely aligned, and you can also create your own custom functions. Also, all of the buttons on the M50 are customizable, so you can set them up however you would like. You know, your flash button to be something else, to be the autofocus, for example, you can set that up. Everything can be customizable on the camera, which is really, really cool. So another cool cool thing about the M50 is the fact that you can actually use the Canon Camera Connect app to take pictures, to transfer photos and videos via Wi-Fi, and even to control features on your camera, all from the comfort of your phone, which is really cool. I think it's a great feature. I'm not sure if any other camera companies actually have an app that lets you do things like that, but Canon are really at the forefront of that field, and I think that could be really useful if you're out in the field doing some type of shooting. You can rely on your phone to actually help you out a lot with that, so just keep that in mind. Now, we've talked a lot about the features, but what about the most important thing for YouTubers, and that is, of course, the video. What does the video look like on the M50? The M50 does have the new Digic 8 processor, which is the same processor that comes in the R and the RP, so it's brand new. It's got a 24.2 megapixel sensor, so it's pretty decent sized sensor, and of course you've got Canon color science. So the video, as you would expect, is pretty sharp, and in my opinion is definitely one of the best mirrorless videos out there, at least in 1080p. So on top of the standard 1.6 times crop at 4K, you've got a 2.5 times crop that's further applied. You also lose dual pixel autofocus, and the 4K overall just really isn't the sharpest thing in the world out of this camera. Like I said in my last video, the 4K still is usable though. Using the speed booster, you could also just do manual focus to compensate for the loss of dual pixel autofocus, and you can make it work if you're doing like a sit down shot, or even if you're outside and you're good with manual focusing really quickly. The 1080p though is where this camera is really expected to shine, and where it really does shine and excel. The dynamic range is really decent on the camera. It's about what you would expect for a $1,000 camera, even though it's selling at about $600 now. When the camera launched, it was close to $1,000, so it's about what you would expect. Another bonus for me personally is the fact that when you export your videos and photos via Lightroom or via Final Cut or Premiere, whatever you use to edit, you'll also notice that the files aren't too big, which is really important for me personally. And once you really get into content creation and start doing a lot of editing, you'll realize how important it is to you as well. Overall, if you're looking for the best overall camera on the market in terms of video and photography, the combination of the two plus a good price, I still think the Canon M50 wins hands down, head and shoulder above all the competitors, just because of all the features it comes with, just because of the lenses that you're available to pick up. You could go with a Sony, but the lenses are going to cost you an arm and a leg if you eventually decide to go full frame. So in my opinion, I think the M50 is the ideal choice. Additionally, the M50 comes with really good face detection and autofocus, which is really cool. Another pro of this camera is the fact that the autofocus system is so darn good. In my opinion, it's a lot better than the 6D Mark II, which is actually a lot more expensive and is a full frame camera. This camera definitely will keep your subject in focus, which is obviously really important if you're doing sit down vlogs, or if you're just walking around and you want to keep yourself in focus. It doesn't have in-body stabilization like I said before, but it does have a digital version of that, which will keep your subject locked on, but you will of course get cropped in a bit. So that's gonna wrap up this week's Tech Tuesday. If you did enjoy the video, go ahead and click that thumbs up button, as well as subscribing if you're not already subscribed. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys on Friday on my next upload. Sorry again for not uploading last week. I promise 2 videos a week.